Sathyabama Institute of Science and Technology.
Good morning everyone, I am Dr. D. Sudha, working as an Associate Professor in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering in Sathyabama Institute of Science and Technology. Today we are going to discuss about artificial neural networks and learning. So before going to discuss the topic, let's tell you something about what is meant by artificial neural network, why we want to study this, what is the benefits over it. So where is the applications towards the artificial neural network? Yes, real. Nowadays the neural network should be in the booming stage. So wherever we can go in any kind of applications like a healthcare and then industrial IoT, medical appliances, we can able to use the artificial neural network. With the help of that, we will able to solve any kind of enormous complex problem. So let's say what is meant by artificial neural network. It's a kind of machine learning applications, so where we can able to solve the many kind of applications like a classification and regression to solve n number of problems. And then with the help of the learning, we will able to solve enormous problems by applying a input and various machine learning algorithms towards to predict or classify a output. Let's see the introduction about the artificial neural network. So before going to see the artificial neural network, let's discuss about what is meant by biological neural network. What is the inherits over it to learn the artificial neural network today? The biological neural network, it's a kind of neural network. It has a three different components. The one is dendrites, soma and axon. What is meant by dendrites? So the one may be the input where we can get the receiving the various signals from the various users, and then the other one is a soma. It's just transmitting a signals from various neurons. So one neuron to other neuron, and finally we have the term output term, that is axon. We can able to get the output with that axon. So these are the three different components to be used in the biological neuron aspects like a human brain. How the human brain can works? The human brain will consist of so much of neurons. It just receives the input signal from various neurons. It will be going to apply act and transmitting the signals over to multiple, and response to that we can able to transmit the signals. So likewise we here also we have the three components. The one is the dendrites. It is the one to receive the signals from one neurons to other neurons. The next one, soma. So what the soma can do, just it is going to be summarize all the incoming signals and it is going to be sum up. Finally it is going to be transmit from the activation function. With the help of that, it is going to produce the output. So that component should be called as a axon. Now will comes to the artificial neural network. It is an information processing system. It has to be apply certain performance based on the biological network. So similar to the biological network and artificial neural network, so biological neural network, it's completely made up of the neurons which has been able to produce the input, and to based on that will get the output. So in this artificial neural network, we have classified into three different layers. The one is the input layer, the other one is the hidden layer, and then finally output layer. What does the input layer can do? Input layer can consist of the inputs. Along with that, each and every input can have the associated weights. So when we calculate along with that input and weights, we are going to sum up with the activation function. With that help, we will able to produce the output. So let's see with the next. You can see this is the artificial neural networks. Based upon the human brain, we can able to conclude with this kinds of components. The one is the dendrites. So these are the thing we can able to solve with the many kinds of inputs. So here we can have the similarities of brain and artificial neural network. So what is the average speed of the brain should give some response to the society? So that's it's a few microseconds, but in the case of artificial neural network, it can just takes the nanoseconds to process the processing. And then what is the size and complexity of the brain? So it is a 10 power 11 neurons and 10 power 15 interconnections. So even though it just have the more than that, but according to that it will be going to work very fast, but it does not have the chemical actions. If we produce any complex, then we can just takes the slow down the process. But in the case of artificial neural network, depends upon the designer, we will able to solve the many kinds of complex. But in the case of artificial neural network, it gives the best efficiency for simpler algorithms. Now let's move to the next. So this is the human biological neuron, and that one is a basic artificial neuron. So as we discussed in the previous slide, so what are the basic four components exist in human biological? The one is the dendrites, that is the input to be getting receiving various signals from the users, and then the other one is a soma. So that is the one, it is going to sum up all the inputs, and then axon to produce the output. So these are the three components to be exist in the human biological neuron. But here the artificial neuron, we have the three different layers what we discussed, that is the input layer, hidden layer, output layer. So all these input layers should be simply called as artificial neuron dendrites. The one which will be going to sum up with the summarization, that is called as a summation. So based upon the threshold value, what is the need of threshold value? In this place, the artificial neural network, whenever we are going to be get up with the inputs along with the weights, we are going to find out the threshold. Once if we exits the threshold, it fires the output. If it is below the threshold, it neglects the output. So these are the three components should be exist in the artificial neural network. And then next, so this is the functional model of a neuron. So as we discussed in the last slide, so we have the inputs like x1, x2, x3. These are the different kinds of inputs. Each and every input can be associated with the weights. We can represent as W1, W2, W3, etc. So after getting the inputs along with the weight bias, we can able to sum up with the activation function. So that is a mu. After applying the activation function, based on the threshold value, it is going to be produce the output. So that should be represented as y. So this is the biological model of the artificial neural network. So this is the input units, we can call it as the dendrites in the biological neuron, and then we can have the weight function, that is a synapse, and then finally we are going to be sum up the computational part, that should be called as a soma. Finally we can induce the output, that should be the axon. So this is the neural network comes under the artificial part. So it consists of large number of simple processing units, we can call it as a dendrites, and then all the layers could be directly communicated with the weights that has been passed to the activation function. Finally we will able to produce the output, that should be simply called as a axon. And then this is the biological artificial neural network. So as we seen, x1 and x2, these are the inputs, we can call it as a dendrites. So after getting the inputs, we can able to alert it with the weights, that is based on the automatically it should be adjusted the weights for the input. So x1 w1, x2 w2, x3 w3, since we have the number of items n, so we can call it as a xn wn. So after sum up all the things, we can able to produce the output, that should be y. So here also we can represent the activation function, that is simply called as a f. So what is the need of activation function over here? So once we can interconnect all the signals based on the input and weights, we can able to come up with the activation function. With the help of the sigmoid tangent function or parabolic function, we will able to apply the activation function. With that, we will able to check with the threshold. So based upon the threshold, then we will able to check up with the accuracy of the output. So this is the artificial neurons, and then based on the interconnections, the algorithms will be divided into many. The one is a feed forward network, the other one is a feedback network, the last one is a recurrent network. So based upon this network, it is again classified into many layers. The one is a single layer network, the other one is a multi-layer perceptron. So in feedback also, we don't have the single layer and multi-layer, since each and every layer should be going to give you the feedback of the next layer. So based upon that output of the previous layer, we will able to proceed it. But in the case of recurrent layer, again it have the single layer and multiple layer. So we can have the continuation of the remaining part in the next part.